On this episode of The Franchise, today is Monday, January 16th. In this episode, we're going to recap NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. 5 out of the 6 wildcard games have been played. We'll go through every single one of those and take a slight look ahead to tonight's final wildcard game between the Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will do a recap, in-depth recap of tonight's Monday Night Football wildcard game in Tuesday's episode of the podcast. This episode, we're going to recap, though, like I said, all of the games from Saturday and Sunday's slate of NFL Wildcard Weekend. Before we get into that, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, that is where you'll be able to find, watch, or listen to the franchise. TikTok and YouTube is also linked in the episode description. Let's get things started with Saturday's slate of games. We had 2 games on Saturday. We're going to start here with the Seahawks and the 49ers. I picked the 49ers in this game. 49ers ended up winning this game 41-23 over the Seattle Seahawks. The Niners defense is amazing, and their offense is just as good. Since Brock Purdy took over, the Niners offense has improved dramatically. They've gotten a lot better scoring, yards, all of the necessary things on offense they've been better at since Brock Purdy's been in there at the starting quarterback position. But in particular to this game, you look at the first quarter, first few plays for the 49ers, and Brock Purdy was not his sharpest. I mean, you look at the first play of the game, he had Deebo Samuel open for a huge gain, overthrows him. Next play, he underthrows. Next play, he hits Brandon Ayuk. And then he throws an incomplete pass. It could be an easy touchdown in the corner of the end zone. He doesn't even overthrow that. He throws that one way too late. Misses the opportunity for a touchdown there. Another incomplete pass up the middle. Almost picked off on that one. And they settle for a field goal. Next drive, he's a lot better. Gets a huge 68-yard run from Christian McCaffrey. And then gets the touchdown there as well. But, to start the game, especially in that first drive and then some other moments in the first half, Brock Purdy was not his sharpest, but, he ended the game. In that second half, he took over 18 of 30 passing, 332 yards and 3 touchdowns for the last pick in the NFL draft. Brock Purdy took the Niners to that next level. Their defense played amazing too. They shut down Geno Smith. They got him to turn over the ball, got one interception off of him. They limited his touchdowns. He only threw for 2 on the day. Both of those going to DK Metcalf, who really shined in this game. But the defense for San Francisco was way too strong. You look at both of these teams basically had the same exact stat line. Both of them, Seattle had 63 plays, San Francisco 64. 332 yards for Seattle, 505 for San Francisco. Both of them 10 drives, 22 to 24 first downs, 6 of 13 on third down for Seattle, 6 of 11 on third down for San Francisco. And the Niners just had the ball for 32 minutes compared to Seattle's 27. So, when you look at time of possession, first down, third down, drives, plays, they basically played the same amount of football. Just at the end of the day, San Francisco's defense limited the amount of yards and the amount of touchdowns, obviously, the amount of points put on the board for the Seahawks. And then Brock Purdy in that offense with McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel with 133 yards and a touchdown, Ayuk with 73 yards. McCaffrey had 119 yards rushing in this game with 15 carries. That carried the Niners to the next level, ultimately beating them and moving on to the next round of the playoffs. Seattle, you look at their season, you are disappointed if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan at the loss. Obviously, your playoffs, your season is over. You lost in the playoffs. But you should not be mad or upset at this season at all, because you come into this season trading Russell Wilson away, and the expectation is that this is going to be a tanking season, and you are going to be fighting for the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But they came out this season. Geno Smith played the best football of his career, played MVP football earlier in the season, and led this Seattle Seahawks team to the postseason with a 9-8 record, winning season with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Kenneth Walker III coming out as a rookie and being one of the best running backs in the NFL. And then Geno Smith finally getting his opportunity and leading this team that before the season, like I said, was destined to be one of the worst teams in the NFL to being a playoff team. What a great season for Seattle despite them losing in the playoffs. You can't be more than happy if you're a Seahawks fan at the season you had, because you're going to look back and be like, wow, we were supposed to be bad and we just made the playoffs. Yeah, we got blown out by the Niners, but we had a great overall season. This game is gonna have a lot of implications. This one, there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this one. I mean, Chargers, Jaguars. Chargers lose this game 31-30 on the road. And the story of this one is the Chargers blowing a 27-point lead. I mean, the Chargers led this game by 27 points and lost. That is one of the biggest chokes, biggest playoff collapses I've ever seen. Herbert in this game, 273 yards and a touchdown, 35 of 43 passing. Since the Chargers' last drive with a touchdown in the second quarter, this is how their following possessions with the football went since that touchdown. Punt, field goal, punt, field goal, missed field goal, punt, end of game. Since the Chargers scored their last touchdown, they did nothing offensively. Since they scored that touchdown, they scored a total of 6 points. And then they punted the ball 4 times. And they also missed a field goal. The Chargers had every single opportunity, and they should have beat the Jaguars by more than 27 points. I mean, the way they were playing in that first half was incredible. Eckler had 2 touchdowns rushing. He only had 35 yards. And I think that is where you have to start. How are you going to be up 27 points heading into the second half and you are not running the football? The key to success when you are up by multiple points, multiple touchdowns, multiple scores, is to run the football. If you have a lead late in a game, in the postseason, you should be running the football, running the clock out, and limiting the amount of time of possession that your opponent has. And that is the complete opposite of what the Chargers did. The Chargers continued to push the ball downfield with Herbert, with Keenan Allen, with Gerald Everett. And that is the reason they lost this game. And it's not Justin Herbert's fault that they lost this game. I mean, you can definitely put blame on Justin Herbert. I think Herbert is not at fault here. He definitely has blame. You can't put no blame on Herbert because they didn't have any scoring drive. They only had 2 field goals the entire second half. So how does Herbert not take over as if he's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the best young players in the NFL? How does he not take over the game with his arm, with his talent, with his legs, with the ability that he has as a quarterback? How does he not take over the game for the Chargers? But at the same time, they need to be running the football. Austin Eckler only got 13 carries in this game. I mean, you need to be running the football as soon as you get out of the half. You need to be pushing that ball. Eckler should have ended the game with 25 carries. Your backup running back needs 10, 12 carries. Herbert needs to be, pushing it down on third down to continue to be able to run the football. And the Chargers' recipe for success in the first half did not translate over to the second half. Meanwhile, for the Jaguars, what a comeback it is for them. Coming down 27 points, winning the game. Trevor Lawrence was bad in the first half. 4 interceptions for him on the game. But he ended this thing with 288 yards and 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions as well. Like I just previously mentioned, Evan Ingram, 93 yards and a touchdown. Christian Kirk, 78 yards, touchdown. Zay Jones, 74 yards, touchdown. Marvin Jones Jr., 29 yards, touchdown. The Jaguars took advantage of the Chargers not being able to score the football. They took advantage of them punting 5 times. They took advantage of the missed field goal. They took advantage of them only hitting field goals. And they capitalized with 4 touchdowns, and then ultimately that field goal in the final 4 seconds of the game to win it and send the Chargers home packing. The question now is, will Brandon Staley be fired as head coach of the Chargers? And it is a tough question. I think the only reason you'd fire him is if you can get, and you're going to out there and get Sean Payton, who's the best head coach available on the market right now. Like I mentioned a few episodes ago, I thought based on the 5 teams currently that are looking for a head coach, the Cardinals, Colts, Texans, Panthers, and Broncos. I thought the Cardinals were the best fit for Sean Payton, but if the Chargers decide that Brandon Staley and his clock management and his play calling is not working, is not going to work, it won't get better, you have to go out there and get Sean Payton, because Sean Payton with Justin Herbert and playing in LA, the Chargers have the opportunity, if they get the right head coach, to be a good team. You have a top 5 quarterback in the league. You just need a head coach who has somewhat of a game plan, on somewhat of an idea of how to finish a football game after you come out guns blazing up 27 points in the playoffs. All right, we had 3 games on Sunday. Dolphins and Bills was the first one. This game I thought was going to be a blowout. I think the expectation for a lot of people was the Bills were going to easily run away with this game. But they only won by 3 points, 34-31, Buffalo over Miami. This is just one of those games where, this is why you play, because the Bills are a better team than the Dolphins, record-wise, talent-wise. They are a better team. But when it comes to playing the game, the Bills were up early. They were up 17. They were up big in that first quarter, and then you look at the half, and they're barely up on the Dolphins. Josh Allen, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 352 yards. Skylar Thompson did as much as he could, but the gap between him and Tua is very, very huge. I think if Tua was playing in this game, just ignoring the fact that they lost by 3 points, I think Tua gives them a better chance at winning the game. They could have won the game with Tua, but they also could have lost more with Tua. I guess it just depends. Everything's different game to game. Of a Skylar Thompson not able to push the Miami Dolphins over the edge, and the Bills move on to the next round of the playoffs. There's not really a whole lot to talk about in that game for me. The Giants and the Vikings, I was wrong. I've been saying all year that I didn't think the Giants had the potential to go out there and win a playoff game, and they beat the Vikings 31-24 in Minnesota. And the Giants are moving on to the next round of the playoffs. So I will have to own that. I was, under the impression that the Giants were not going to ever be able to win a playoff game this year. And they proved me wrong. So what happened? How did the Giants win? How did the Vikings lose? Well, the Vikings lost because their defense is horrible. Their defense is, pass-wise, they have the worst defense in the league. And in this game, they couldn't stop Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley on the run. Daniel Jones had 17 carries, 78 yards. He also had 301 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. So Daniel Jones is a dual threat. You have to be prepared for Daniel Jones to drop back and throw the ball, or to snap it and run. But he can also drop back, roll out to his right, and then get the first down, which he did multiple times in this game. Go through his reads, see no one's there, and then be able to get a 12, 15-yard gain for a first down, and to extend the drive for the Giants. So the Giants' offense was clicking on all cylinders. Hodgins, 105 yards and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. And that Giants defense played amazing too, especially in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter when the Vikings, only down one score with the potential to tie the game, are on the field. Kirk Cousins, whatever you want to say about him in primetime, he did play pretty good in this game. 31 of 39, 273, 2 touchdowns. He did all that he could. And I think that offense did as much as possible. TJ Hawkinson played one of the best games of his career. 10 receptions, 129 yards. Justin Jefferson, 47 yards on 7 catches for Minnesota. Oh, but that Giants defense really balled out in that last 4-5 minutes of the game against that Vikings offense. They were able to sack Kirk Cousins, limit the first downs, make key deflections, and ultimately won the game. The Giants defense won them the game. The Vikings defense is the reason they lost. I mean, yeah, they didn't. The Vikings offense did not score enough points, obviously. But that offense played great. Hawkinson played one of the best games of his career, like I said. But if that if that Vikings defense was somewhat average, I think the Vikings have a way better chance of beating a team like the Giants. And we'll go on later in the week and look at the next round. But if that Giants defense and Daniel Jones continue to do what they're doing, they actually have good playoff makeup to win another game and possibly even go on a deeper and further run in the postseason. And for the Vikings, I mean, it was a matter of time. They had the worst defense in the playoffs. Out of all of the teams, their defense was the worst. And in the playoffs, defense is very, very important. You need to be able to run the football, and you need to be able to play defense. And the Giants did both of those things, and the Vikings only did really one of them. They were only really able to run the football, and they have not been able to play defense all year. They cannot stop other teams from scoring. So that is where it hurt them, and it ultimately caught up to them in the first round against the New York Giants. So they did prove me wrong. We'll see, next week when they play in their divisional game. We'll see. We'll do that later in the week if I have them, advancing. And then the final game from this weekend is the Ravens and the Bengals. Bengals pull off the win, 24-17 at home. This game was very close for majority of the game, closer than it should have been, with Tyler Huntley in at quarterback with no Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. Joe Burrow, not his best game of his career, not a game that he wasn't the best version of Joe Burrow in this game. 23 of 32, 209 yards, 1 touchdown passing, 1 rushing. Tyler Huntley, 226, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The Ravens could have won this game. They were half a yard away from winning this game. They were 1 correct decision away from winning this game. And that comes on that 1 yard, first and goal at the 1 yard line. Or not the first and goal, but, at the 1 yard line. All you need to do is push it in to get the touchdown. And Tyler Huntley takes the snap. You bring in extra blockers. You bring in extra offensive linemen, tight ends. You bring in all the big guys to push Huntley into the end zone and score the touchdown. I mean, this play is done multiple times in a game, millions of times, right? This play has been done. You're at the 1. You need to score a touchdown. QB sneak it in. Push your quarterback in. And Huntley does the complete opposite. Everyone's pushing, and he jumps over top. He leaps to try and score the touchdown, and then that ball gets deflected out of his hands. Bengals recover, and then they score the touchdown, puts them up, and then the rest is history. The Bengals win that game. If the Ravens score right there, there's the real chance that they could have won that game. But that play decision right there by Tyler Huntley to leap instead of just diving in. If he dives in, touchdown, Ravens are up with like 4 or 5 minutes left in the quarter. But him leaping over, getting that ball deflected out of his hands, and then ultimately recovered for the touchdown, that is the reason they lost this game. The Ravens and the Bengals, both of these teams had opportunities to win. The Ravens had an opportunity to win the game right there. The Bengals took advantage of it, and ultimately won the game, moving on to the next round. The Bengals didn't play their best football, but I still think next week against the Buffalo Bills, you can't overreact to one game. You can't just say because they didn't play their best football that they are doomed, next week. Because next week is different than this week, and last week was different than this week. Every week is different. It's a week-to-week sport. It's a week-to-week game. So the Bengals next week, I expect them to come out looking a lot better against the Buffalo Bills. We have one more wild card game tonight. That is the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. In my predictions, I picked Tampa Bay to pull off the win against the Cowboys. We'll preview this game real quick. It's going to be played later tonight on Monday. We'll talk about this game tomorrow, the recap of it. Dallas 12-5 on the year. Tampa 8-9. Tampa was at home, since they won their division. I picked Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay, Tom Brady never lost to the Cowboys in his career. And Dak Prescott and the Cowboys have not been playing good football as of late. Prescott has 15 interceptions on the season. He's turned the ball over a lot of picks, a lot of bad decisions as of late. But I think the Cowboys' key to success is a few things. First of all, their defense needs to be as good as it's been the entire year. They need to be. Michael Parsons needs to have himself a career game. Trayvon Diggs and all of that secondary needs to lock in and limit the targets to Mike Evans, to Godwin, to Julio Jones, to Russell Gage. They need to lock down and force the Buccaneers to run the football. Because Tampa Bay has no running game. They don't have a true back. Leonard Fournette was okay this year, right? But they have no running game. Their offensive line has not been good this year. They will get their center, Ryan Jensen, back. But how many snaps will he play? How long will he play? And how healthy and how productive will he be on the field tonight for the Buccaneers? So if the Cowboys want to win, they need to limit the targets to Evans, because that is the true number one receiver on this team. And they need to force Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to run the football. And then offensively, Dak Prescott needs to not turn the ball over. He cannot throw a pick in this game. If he turns the ball over, if he throws 1 or 2 picks, the game is over. The Buccaneers will win this game. If he can find CeeDee Lamb, find Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and get down the field and score those points like they've done earlier in the year, the Cowboys should be able to win this game. But if you're Tampa, all you need to do is hope that Dak turns the ball over. And then you just need to find Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and hope that your offensive line can get it together for this one playoff game. And then you'll be moving on to the next round. I still like Tampa. I'm not going to change my picks. Still think Tampa pulls off the win. Tom Brady stays undefeated against the Cowboys in his career. So that's going to do it for this episode. We just went through, recapped some of the games from this wild card weekend in the NFL. Tomorrow's episode, we'll recap tonight's final game between the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. We'll go over some NFL draft news and some other things from the world of sports that we didn't cover in this episode. Well, as always, franchise, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We'll see you guys on Tuesday with another episode of the franchise.